Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and I can't tell you how comforting it is to me that the expression, I don't do X, has survived to the 23rd century, such as, I don't do scanning for life forms, or we don't do prime directive violations. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom on the Chronic Rift Network. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ella, I know that you visited a Tolkien exhibit recently, and I think you've talked about it on Generations Geek. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is the first thing they do when you come in, do they quiz you on whether you say Tolkien or Tolkien?
They not that, but they have literally the exhibition I was at. They had like quizzes up, like, do you know your Elvish, and like, do you know the Hobbit, just like random stuff, which I was like, no brag, but
okay, so you did well at that.
I did.
I went to a Downton Abbey exhibition recently, and I took a quiz to see whether I would be good material for the Abbey, like whether I could apply for a job, and I passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they said I had a lot of potential and maybe could be a footman. So that's not Trek. That's the wrong show. Let me continue that in that vein just real quick and try to blow your mind. I was reading somebody's post about Tolkien recently, and somebody suggested that to dogs, we are like elves. Like we are to dogs as elves are to mortals in Middle-earth. You know, we outlive them. We have very few children, if any, in comparison to them. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think elves are a little bit more annoyed with men, a little bit less of like, oh my God, you're so cute.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're still like ruffling his fur. You're not.
Yeah, I can see like it's sort of like that in the films when Galadriel. I think that she probably looks at Gimli as like a real nice dog, real friendly dog. She gave me 3 milk bones. Also joining us on the show tonight is another co-host of mine. She's the co-host of the Just Enough Trope podcast, a show that brings its listeners all the news that's fit to cast in the world of nerdy entertainment. It's Mikan Hana. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you here. So all the news that's fit to cast, does that include Power Rangers news?
I don't think we would ever necessarily exclude it, but I don't think we've ever particularly talked about Power Rangers on the show. We've talked about just about everything else, though, it seems like.
What have you been talking about lately on Just Enough Trope?
Yeah, we just talked about some of the top horror films of 2018. We talked about Suspiria, A Quiet Place, and Mandy.
Oh, okay.
And Mandy, if you haven't seen it, is fantastic and Nicolas Cage at his best. So I would definitely check it out.
Yeah, that was excellent, Mandy. I really enjoyed that. And it's not a kid's movie. Don't take your kids to see it. But for adults, it's definitely it's good entertainment. Ella, how are you fixed for movies where you are? Do you have a good movie theater by you?
We do. We have actually a really cute little local movie theater here in Mile End. It's called Genesis, and I have one of my classes there actually, so I'm there at least once a week.
Oh, what class is it?
It's called Screening History, representing the past in historical films. So I go there, and one of my favorite professors here like lectures for like 45 minutes on, you know, kind of like the importance of whatever film we watch, and then we get to watch a movie in the movie theater.
That's awesome.
Media.
It's really cool.
I when I was in England a long time ago, I found this cool little theater. I think it was called a Little Theater in Bath, England, and it was clearly some kind of like house or some building that had some other purpose, and it had been repurposed to be like a little theater. And they had 2 screening
It's always
rooms.
a church.
Or a church? Oh, okay.
It's always, this building used to be a church. Genesis used to be a church, and like, yeah, and our local pub. Well, the pub that all the college kids go to used to be a church. Like everything used to be a church.
Just turning those churches out. This little theater had like one screening room, and it was actually in its basement, and it had about maybe 25, 30 seats tops.
Oh my gosh.
And it projected it onto a little screen that was probably about 6 feet wide. So it was like this sort of quaint, tiny little theater, which seemed very British to me. And the movie I saw, this will put it in a particular date for you, was The Watcher, which unfortunately was not a Marvel film about Uatu, the Watcher, but was instead a horrible Keanu Reeves serial killer film that I recommend nobody ever sees. Don't watch The Watcher. That would be my review.
Well, I haven't yet, so I'm on the right track, apparently.
That's my Gene Shalit
Neither have
review.
I.
Don't watch The Watcher. Yeah, skip it. Well, before we get into tonight's episode, I want to inform the listeners that if they didn't know, the titles for a few future episodes of Discovery have been released. The title of... You guys want to know these, right?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Okay, they're not spoilers, not really. Episode 3 is called Point of Light, and as we've seen, we can talk about it near the end of this show. We'll feature Giorgio, the Klingons characters, and Kronos. Episode 4 is called An Obol for Charon, which will feature number 1 coming into the show and the Return of the Enterprise, of course. Episode 5 is called Saints of Imperfection. We don't know much about this, but I believe Giorgio was seen in some key art for it. And episode 6 is called The Sounds of Thunder, and nobody knows nothing about that. When it comes out on February 21st, we'll find out. It's reminiscent to me of a Ray Bradbury short story called The Sound of Thunder, or A Sound of Thunder. And that's the one where there's like a time machine and they take people back in time to like shoot dinosaurs, but they tell them...
Oh my god, and he steps on a butterfly?
Yes, that's where the butterfly
Oh my
effect
God.
idea comes from, or at least was popularized, yeah. So that is also a bad film from the 2000s, starring Ben Kingsley and Edward Burns. Don't watch that one either. A lot of good advice on this show. Mika, what do you think about the new Trek shows that have been announced? The Giorgio show, Picard, so on and so forth.
For the most part, I feel like I'm looking forward to them. I'm really kind of curious to see where they're going to take the Picard show. Especially, I just rewatched the penultimate episode of that. What is it called again? I'm so great with show titles. All Good Things. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. The ultimate. So just seeing that and kind of wondering like what he's been up to, like did he get a vineyard somewhere? Has he been checking in on data? I just kind of want to see what he's been doing, and was he made an admiral at some point? I wouldn't mind seeing some cameos from some other TNG people too. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I think it would be very strange if there were none. Like I would
agree.
The way that shows work is you've got contracts, you have to base it around somebody. This is the Picard show, but just to take him away from the TNG crew completely and not even have a suggestion. They're having coffee. He's having coffee with Troy or something like that. Just to see them a little bit.
I was going to say, I hope it's Marina.
Yeah. And they're all, it's not a situation where, we can't get the TOS crew all back together. That wouldn't be impossible. But they're all around and they're all working and healthy. And so, this is not to turn it into the TNG show, but take advantage of it. Listen to me. I know they're listening. Yes, they're there.
Right.
Hear the sound.
They are available.
And they want it too, because they want jobs.
Yeah.
What did you think about the short treks?
I liked the Saru one the most. I really liked that. Getting to know Saru a little bit more and kind of having an idea of his background and where he came from.
Sure.
I thought that was really interesting. I liked getting to meet his sister and his dad. Kind of fills in that story a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of bittersweet that he can never go home again. And I think he kind of feels that way too. But I think he's...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think he's happy with the decision that he made to go with Starfleet, but I think it was a very difficult decision.
Yeah, and we keep getting... so maybe someday we'll get another episode that really focuses on him, but we keep getting these little character moments with him. We've had some today, and then also in last week's episode, where we get a little bit of extra detailing on the sort of melancholy of that decision and, you know, how it shaped him. And it's great. I mean, I guess if he's just a side character, that's probably more development than most side characters get. But he's so good at what he does, and Doug Jones is so good in the role that I hope that we get to see that. And I was asking myself this week, you know, I know Pike's running around and he's wearing his cool sweater and he's talking to these farming people or whatever. But Saru's just getting it done, and it's like, why isn't Saru the captain of this ship again?
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good thing to bring up because I don't know, it's just like Pike showed up and said the Federation put me in charge, so I'm in charge.
Sorry, buddy.
You know, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he's perfectly capable of running the ship on his own.
Yeah, well, he should be. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's get into the episode. Tonight we've seen the second episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 2 called New Eden. We're here to break it down for you. And before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. I'm glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for New Eden is, a new signal appears, prompting Stamets's emotional return to the mycelial network and leading Burnham, Pike, and Awoshikun to a pre-warp planet where they face a complex ethical dilemma. Tilly's overeagerness lands her in trouble, but when the planet and Discovery's landing party are threatened, her curiosity may be the one thing that can save them. It's kind of a long recap. That's the kind of recap you'd give, Mika, of a movie on Death Trope.
Yeah, I know. I go a little too into detail.
The teleplay for this episode was written by Vaughn Wilmont and Sean Cochran. Wilmont got his start in the Trek franchise playing a Bajoran Starfleet officer in the TNG episode Descent. He later became a screenwriter and has worked as a producer on several television shows, and he is a staff writer on Discovery this season. Sean Cochran is also a Discovery staff writer. He worked on Season 1 as well and wrote the episode Despite Yourself. He also developed the story for the short trek Calypso alongside Michael Chabon. And the story for this episode comes from Sean Cochran and Akiva Goldsman. Akiva Goldsman is the Academy Award winner of A Beautiful Mind and many other bad films. This episode was... This episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who needs, I hope, no introduction. He's directed many episodes of post-TOS Trek, except Enterprise. He never did an Enterprise. And, of course, he directed First Contact and the Insurrection films, as well as the film Clockstoppers as well. So what'd you guys think? What'd you guys think of this second episode, New Eden? Ella, what's your opinion of New Eden?
I liked it. I thought it was very reminiscent of TOS, the kind of like, you know, like issue of the week, like if they find this random church, it's whatever. But I also kind of want them to get going, like
into the meta plot.
Yeah, I understand like suspense and keeping your audience waiting, but like I'm ready for some action. I'm ready for Spock, which I'm guessing we're gonna see him next week. But yeah, I'm ready for some more stuff.
Yeah. And the episode, the first thing I have in my notes is, yay, a standalone, which it kind of is. And it's kind of the kind of thing I think that a lot of people have asked for the new show to kind of look like the old show. And that's not really, you know, I'm comfortable if they never do it again. I do like, no, seriously, I mean, I like the standalone Trek, but I've got 700 episodes of other Trek. And if this is what Discovery wants to do, you know, to give this week by week type thing, that's fine. And if they could find places like everybody's favorite episode from the first season, Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, if they could find places to settle down, that's fine. It's a little weird to put this in the second episode, in the second slot.
I was going to say, like, they have to time them right. If they're going to do these episodes that are almost standalone, they have to be like in a refreshing place in the season. You can't put it like episode 2 when you have these like massive other plot points going on.
Yeah. Although the conflict of this episode relates directly to what the plot is. It sort of gives us this opening thing like, okay, so whatever this Red Angel thing is, it definitely has infected other people and other planets. Mika, what did you think about the episode?
I liked it. I do agree. Like, I kind of want there to be a little bit more action to kind of delve into what the season is about a little bit more. But yeah, I guess they're kind of, like you guys said, just kind of plotting it out piecemeal. And like we're learning bit by bit what the what the red burst might be and what the red angel might be. But I don't feel like we learned a whole lot of new things about it this episode.
Right. It is kind of a setting the table kind of situation.
Right.
Something that we did learn that I was a little excited about was we're getting some development of Pike as a character in his background. And I'm sure that there's plenty of development that might be self-contradictory just from the various books that he's appeared in. But getting an idea of him and his leadership style, finding out that his dad was like both a scientist and like somebody who, if he wasn't religious, at least he studied comparative religions and taught on that. And I think that really slides in well to his sort of diplomatic approach to this situation they find themselves in, because right away it's like he's just like an old like Catholic walking back into church, and he can do all the things, and they're like peace be with you, right back at you, and and he can fit in and blend in well, but he also is very sensitive, I think, and that really is that's the sticking point for him on the Prime Directive thing, because let's face it, I mean, captains, especially in this era, break the Prime Directive all the time, but I really do think that he is like, I don't want to ruin what they've got here, and they seem to be really happy. And if we screw that up, that's what the Prime Directive is for.
Right. Well, and like he just really does not want Burnham to say anything.
Yeah, but to her credit and Washington's credit, they do keep those orders. Like after he gets blown up, he blows himself up. Which, by the way, how do safeties work on Starfleet phasers? There's this little girl picks it up.
What? Oh my god.
Yeah, bad news.
Like I like that because it reminds me more of like original series Pike, to have him be so like self-sacrificing and just like a very honest, straightforward captain. But then I was like, how did she just like set off the self-destruct on this fan? Like what? How did she?
Yeah. It's not good, but of course he gets half blown up, and I like how Burnham was like, let's take him to the temples and we'll just pray for another miracle. Like,
right.
Let's beam him out of here. Yeah. There was a lot of
thinking.
Yeah. Well, you got to keep your mask on, keep the roll up, stay in the roll. There was a lot of comedy in this episode. I've noticed that so far there's been a lighter tone for this season. What do you guys think about that? Good, bad, funny?
She said we don't do funny, and then he laughed. So.
Right. That specifically.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe they got like some feedback from fans or something like that they should be funnier, or I'm not really sure where it's coming from, but maybe somebody in the writer's room was just like, let's make it funnier this year. I don't know.
Yeah, I love the comedy relief with like Tilly and everything is like really good, but it also it seems like somebody was like, just relax, like the original series was fun, but like Star Trek is fun, like it's okay to like say something funny and then have like like plucky violin after it.
Right, yeah.
But exactly, but they're like trying to be relaxed, and so it comes off as like I think it comes off as a little awkward, like cutting to like even last episode with Tilly's like hilarious exchange with Pike, like that was hysterical, but it's also like completely off tone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that the tone of the show is set necessarily or needs to be set.
No, not at all. That's the other thing, is that they're still like figuring out what they're doing. Like it's the second episode of the second season. They don't know yet. Like they're almost there.
Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I felt like there was a lot of like lines like you guys shot tardigrade DNA, or like, oh, I guess if we're we're riding on a highway made of mushrooms, we're just gonna have a good old time. And I'm not sure if it's just them trying to not be self-serious about it, which I think would be a good move, or also if because apparently all those elements came from Brian Fuller, who is over. I think he's over 2 years gone from the show now. And so now this is really the first time that the show gets to do its own thing and doesn't have to incorporate like these ideas from creators that aren't there anymore. So it seemed like maybe it could be them kind of laughing at it a little bit and being like, yeah, it's not, we're not going to really ever talk about that stuff again.
Yeah, like everyone knows that there's been like this drama behind the scenes, and they're like, ah, ha, ha, everything's fine.
Right.
I really liked when Saru said, "I suppose you had to be there."
Yeah.
About
Yeah. You had to
Me
be there.
too.
What do you guys think about Frakes as a director for this episode? Frakes is known to he goes high, is what I hear, and he often uses very unique camera angles and moves. Did you guys find that really affected your viewing? Did you really enjoy that? Did you notice?
I don't know that I noticed, to
Yeah,
be
I didn't
perfectly
notice anything
honest.
super crazy this episode.
I mean, the donut scene was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that.
Um,
I'm trying to think of like what else.
Yeah, I feel like I was too like stitched into the story to really like I wasn't thinking about the editing or the directing like at all. I was just very focused
Sure.
on like what was happening on screen.
There was one scene in particular in the bridge where they were trying to figure out how they're going to do the donut thing. There was a lot of movement, and the camera was sort of moving around actors, sort of creating tension. And I thought that was like, oh yeah, I could see that's a Frakesy kind of thing to do.
Yeah, like when Detmer like gets up and like sits back down, like all that stuff.
Yeah. I think this is officially, believe it or not, the 750th episode of Star Trek
Oh, wow.
in the
I
franchise.
feel like we should celebrate.
Yay!
We should throw a party.
Yes. All right. Well, you start working on that, but
Okay.
I don't know if that
Let's
includes.
start working on the 1000th episode party.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of balloons.
We need the few years to. Well, I mean, with all these series coming out, a year or two at most, really.
With so many,
You're right.
with so many Star Trek episodes gone by, I think it's very difficult for. I don't envy these writers at all in coming up with premises that Star Trek has not somehow touched already. I wouldn't envy Voyager writers, for the same reason. And so when you see elements that pop up in New Trek, well, I want you guys' opinion. Like, does that bother you, or do you just think it's just part of the game? I noticed specifically tonight, and I'll get you guys started, that this episode, in its Prime Directive themes, reminds me of an episode like Who Watches the Watchers, and also an episode like Pen Pals. In one episode, you've got a sort of religious thing going on, and the interference of Starfleet, makes them think that the Starfleet are gods or whatever. And in Pen Pals, you've got a planet that's going to be destroyed, and they're like, well, I don't think we can do anything because they're not supposed to like interfere with the universe. And so we see both of those things in this episode. Mika, is that something that is unavoidable now that Star Trek has turned 750?
Well, I think in some ways it's unavoidable. I think that the Prime Directive is something that comes back in stories time and time again, and I think that that's just kind of something I don't think you can avoid that, because you're always going to run into you're discovering new planets and new civilizations, so you're going to run into people.
Yeah.
I know, but you're going to run into people who don't have warp capability.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be, really self-conscious about like, well, what am I doing? Do I have anything? Is anything showing that am I gonna expose myself as being from the future? And I think when you put yourself in that situation, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Like, you could just say something and somebody be like, what do you mean by that? And then you kind of have to say, it's just a saying from where I come from, or something like that. You just have to be on your feet. I know.
Like an Outlander.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. I'm not complaining. What I really like, no, really, I'm not. Like, I think that it is a problem that you're going to have, and I think all you can do is just have your characters define them in the way that they respond to this situation. That might be familiar for somebody like Data or Picard or something like that. And that's where this episode really shines, is in the way Pike deals with it, because I don't think we've ever seen a character respond to a Prime Directive whoopsie the way that Pike does. As we're getting to the end of that episode, and this poor guy, Jacob, his character on the planet is like, I know this stuff is real, and like nobody really believes him.
Jacob is me.
Yeah, like I even had wrote down in my notes before like the very last scene. I was like, that's too bad for that guy, and that's not what happens. Pike has that conversation with Burnham, and he's like, screw it, and he just goes down there and he's like, look, here's the deal. You're right. Like, let me tell you what you want to hear, and we do this and we do that, and I don't want you to tell anybody. I hope you don't tell anybody, but hopefully we'll meet again someday. No other Kirk would have like single tier would have just flown off. They never would have helped that guy. Picard probably the same thing. Picard was forced to in Who Watches the Watchers because of how screwed up everything got. But I just like the fact that it's a violation, but he's like, I think this is the right thing to do. Like, if we're going to reach out and touch people, that's our sort of thing. That's what this is. Like, touching somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So making that connection. Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure. Does it apply? Does the Prime Directive even apply? Because they're like Earthlings.
Well, that was the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Nobody even seems to like.
Does it? You tell me.
Well, that's the thing. Like he immediately goes like, well, this is they're pre-warp. And it's like, well, I guess they're pre-warp because they're from early 21st century Earth. But
right.
if somebody falls in a hole and does a Rip Van Winkle and they, I don't know, breathe in some gas that keeps them like young for 200 years, and then you pull them out of the hole in the 23rd century, do you go, put this blindfold on? You can't see anything. Don't look at San Francisco. Don't look at it. There's no Starfleet Academy. You're a pre-warp person. They're part of us. Anyway, it's nuts.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like a complication in a way. And maybe that was kind of like one reason why Burnham went and talked to Pike and tried to convince him to go and, you should go and talk to Jacob.
Yeah.
Burnham also, I think, like, just cares about the greater good more than she cares about the rules.
Yeah.
Well, that's very true. Yeah.
Well, speaking of good and evil, I guess that was my bad segue into religion. What did you guys think about the space Unitarian Universalists that live on this planet? Do you think that this is the show's sort of entree into... I mean, clearly, you have a character or a thing called the Red Angel. It looks like we're going to be dealing with religion, but it seems like they're stepping on the gas as far as that goes. Ella, do you want religion in your Star Trek?
Honestly, no. I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to say that I'm getting a little irritated with the like heavy Christian undertones.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And I was already a little confused by like the whole like, oh, like Spock had nightmares about this like red angel, and now Burnham had a vision of this red angel. Now all these people saw the same thing, this red angel, and it's like, okay, so it's obviously an alien because this is Star Trek. Like, it's not an angel, it's an alien that is doing something. Right. But then for their, like, the Seven Beacons thing, I'm kind of like, we don't need to make this, like, we don't need a plot that's based on Christianity because we have that in every fantasy book ever written.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. So you don't want the C.S. Lewising of Star Trek you're not into?
Yes. Not really. I mean, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for now because, like, I think I'm exaggerating a little bit on how Christian it has been so far.
Well,
but,
I mean, they literally walked into a church and there were stained glass windows.
Yeah, yeah.
I like how Pike's like, you ever been in a church? And I was like, okay, canon guy. There's a chapel on the Enterprise. We see it in Balance of Terror, so we know that there is, yeah. But anyway, yeah, well, it's certainly something that they seem to want to explore. And I don't know. I've always felt like Star Trek is probably better off for not having religion, but I've always wondered why it, where it was. David Mack, a longtime guest on the show, I've talked to him about this, and in his books, he's kind of brought some religion back. Like he's shown that certain people, certain officers have certain faiths because there's no way that would go away altogether. I'm not saying because I'm anti-religious or even pro-religious. I'm just saying we've always had these things, and they're such a part of us culturally that just because we discover aliens or find unlimited energy or fix all of our problems doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to become totally scientific and unspiritual. And even, of course, Burnham. Burnham is like that person that's like, all right, let me get my point out here. Sorry. Immediately, Burnham has to go, what if science is a religion? It's like, oh, jeez. You are the person that would say funny. That.
Where she's like, well, if science is my religion, what then? Where do we go?
I don't see no test tubes up on this altar here. Yeah.
When people say science is their religion in general, I'm just like, I don't think you understand what is going on.
Well, atheism is my religion. I want one window that has no glass in it.
Oh my
god. Mika, what do you think about getting some religion in your peanut butter, in your Star Trek chocolate? However that goes.
I don't think it necessarily, needs to be there, but I don't know. I think that they thought we had this thing. It's a red angel. What do we think when we think red angel? Well, it's an angel religion. I think that must be their line of thinking somehow. I'm hoping that it's not like throughout this entire season, but
you're crushing me, because I was just thinking, I just got done saying, like, I hope that they can tackle this religion issue in a fair and deep manner, and you're like, they thought angels saw religion. It's like, oh boy. I hope that it's better than that. That's not what I wanted to hear. I hope that it's more nuanced than that.
Sorry.
Well, but also though, why are both Spock and Burnham were essentially raised on Vulcan? Why are they both like, this is Christian, this big Jesus energy? Like, what? Why?
Well, look, this angel. It's not a precious moments figure. I mean, it's like many vicious moments. There you go. Many cultures have angel type figures, so it doesn't have to necessarily be Michael the Archangel or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it is.
But isn't the number 7? Isn't 7 beacons?
7 is also a significant number in many world religions. And
oh, okay.
Yeah, take that, media studies major. You haven't got to that movie yet, huh? Just kidding. Sorry. So anyway, okay. So we're all sort of divided on that, and hopefully, tentatively hopeful that it will be actually kind of good. Can we talk about what everybody has been waiting for us to talk about, and that is what's going on with the May Ahern character?
Yeah. I don't know if I thought when we first saw her, I kind of thought to myself, is she really there? Because she's all like, she's all like, oh, I was there when you got hit, and oh my god, and all this stuff, and like,
and she was on screen. I was like, liar, fake.
Yeah. and then I thought I was wrong when Tilly was talking to her, and then she like leaves, and we still focus on her.
Right.
Yeah. I thought I was wrong because she was still there, but then when we got the Stilly thing, I was like, oh no, she's not there.
When they held on her, I was a little worried. I was like, is this like a single white female thing, or a single cadet female thing? But it was just for the comedy beat of her running the wrong way, which is like, wow,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. but it's so strange. I don't know if it's like a ghost story or what they're trying to do. Ella, what's your theory?
I feel like they thought I would be more invested than I am. And I just don't. I'm like, Tilly's having a hallucination. Like, I don't know why. I feel like I should care more than I do. But for some reason, I'm just like, okay, like, are we gonna, like, why is she here though? Like, what's well, and it's also like, we've seen Stamets have weird, like, mycelial, like, hallucinations, for lack of a better word. And so it's like, is this just something else like that? I don't know.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, is like the dark matter being connected to the mycelial network somehow? That's a connection to these weird, like, visions that they're having, or is it just Tilly got bonked in the head and she saw somebody who wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, I'm also still paranoid about that shot from last season where the like little like speck of mycelial like dust lands on her shoulder.
Yeah.
And we like linger on it.
Yeah.
I don't trust, and it could be nothing, but I don't trust it. And I just rewatched that episode and I was like, oh, I forgot how long the camera stays on that.
Yeah.
Why?
It was for the comedy bit. Then the spec goes the other way. It was going the wrong way before. Yeah, that's got to be something. And this is the kind of mystery that I'm okay with. I like little flashes of stuff. I know that we'll get a reveal eventually, but I do commend the just weird choice. I like that Stamets is seeing Culber. I think that makes sense. But to have this character who comes out of nowhere, and we might find out, hopefully she won't have like a dumb, bad written connection or backstory to Tilly, but to have this sort of weird thing appear out of nowhere, and you just take it for granted, like, okay, this is just like another Tilly or like another ensign or cadet. And no, something's going on there. So I guess we'll find out soon. Before we talk about what is coming soon, do you guys have anything left that you wanted to say about the episode?
I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I just really liked the moment when Saru was talking to Tilly in sickbay, and he was telling her that she needed to take better care of herself.
Right.
I just thought that was a nice character moment between the two of them.
They are so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
anyone with Tilly is sweet, but that was like especially cute.
Yeah. Like he's trying to look out for her, so.
I also liked when she, and of course, there's something sinister going on, but before we know that about May, she's there and Tilly's doing her thing, and she's like, I need somebody like to, Burnham's usually here, and I can sort of fire things off her, so you get to be like discount Burnham in this scene.
Yeah.
That was good. Also, where did they get an SD card adapter in the future? He's just able to take this helmet camera data and look at it. Which, by the way,
I know
the data doesn't tell them anything. He just gets to see the angel too, so we know that it's not a hallucination now. But otherwise, it's not really a lot of information. He should get his battery back. Be like, sorry, Jake, I'm gonna need that. Well, anyway, forget it, Jake. It's New Eden. So anyway, let's talk about what we think is coming up in the future. On last year's shows, we talked about who we thought was going to die because it was a really fatal show. Everybody seems pretty safe at this point, so I guess it's a good idea to talk about what we think is coming up. Like, what are the lights exactly? Who is the angel? What's Spock's involvement? That sort of thing. Mika, start us off. Give us one speculation for the rest of season 2.
Oh boy.
Lay it on us.
Well, I don't know how he's been having these nightmares for years, but that have been. I mean, has it been for years about the Red Angel? I don't know, but
since he was a kid, right?
Right, it sounded like that. But like, so he saw these red bursts where they appeared like 2 months before, and he must have thought he was hallucinating because he checked himself into the psychiatric unit. Mm-hmm. So I think he thinks that he's crazy and maybe he's just somehow seeing the future. Okay. And I don't know what the Red Angel has been trying to tell him, and maybe the Red Angel has been speaking to him and saying things to him, or maybe he's been seeing like snippets of it and he just thinks he's going crazy. I don't know.
Okay. I think I said time travel last week, right? So
yeah,
I think jumping on board. You're jumping on board for that, for my time travel theory. Okay. Ella, any new insights that have come to you?
I don't know. The psychiatric thing concerns me because we got that shot in last week's like upcoming preview where he's like fighting the like guards.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if he's like, oh, I'm seeing a red angel and I have been since I was a child. Maybe it's time to take some pills. Or if it's if it's like some sort of bigger, because last week I got the vibe that it was some sort of bigger conspiracy like thing. But yeah, now I'm not sure. And I say this every time. You're always like, what's coming up? And I'm like, I have no idea. They surprise me every week. But it's like I don't know.
I think Red Angel is actually an anagram for Grendel. So I think that there will be, if not a Norse monster, there will be some kind of monster that is behind this that they'll have to face off against. That's just
this is how we will tie the Star Trek universe to the Marvel universe.
Yeah, right. There you go. Watcher, yeah, Uatu will pop out and go, I'm sworn not to interfere, but just this once. Well, I think that is it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And I should mention that Enterprising Individuals, which has been off as we're getting ready to do our new season, will be coming back it'll be coming back on February 6th. Wednesday, February 6th, the 4th season of the show will start, so join us for that. You can tweet to us on the show, thank you, by using the hashtag Discoverage. You can email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on that internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice, your podcatcher, and subscribe to the show. Give us a rating and review because it really helps us out. Check out our merch at tpublic.com/user/justenough trope. That's our TeePublic store. We've got all kinds of snazzy Trekwear and T-shirts. Check it out. And also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/EISDpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return next week on January 31st for the next episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. That episode is called Point of Light, as we mentioned, and will feature the return of several characters who played a very big part of Season 1. In the meantime, you can check out our main show, as I mentioned, Enterprising Individuals at enterprisingindividuals.com. And it's a great time to catch up on the show as we are coming back in 13, 14 days or so. So check us out. Mika, thanks for joining us to talk about Star Trek this week. Remind people where they can find you and the show online.
Yeah, you can find me at Mikan Hana. That's MIKAHAN on Twitter. And Just Enough Trope is at justenoughtrope.com, at Just Enough Trope on Twitter, and Just Enough Trope on Facebook as well.
Awesome. What's coming up on Just Enough Trope?
This week we're going to be talking about Deadly Class. We're going to talk about the second story arc of the comics. Okay. And then after that, the local art house theater is showing a Kurosawa bunch of films, and we're going to be talking about Rashomon and Rashomon-like storytelling in other genres.
There's a Rashomon Star Trek episode. There's actually a couple.
Yeah, there is.
Okay. Just making a connection.
We might talk about that on the show.
Okay, that's the one where Riker's trying to bang that guy's wife or whatever. The TNG
right.
one. All right, woo! And Ella, where can people find Generations Geek online?
At Generations Geek on Twitter and Instagram, and generationsgeek.com. I just did a little interview with my dad to go on the show about kind of the nerdy film things I've been doing while here. And my parents will actually be visiting me in England starting next Wednesday, so we'll have some cool material from that as well, while me and my dad frolic in the Shire.
Well, enjoy that.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Your dad is never early or late. He arrives exactly when he means to. So.
That's exactly right.
That's or when Delta brings him. Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening, and we're signing off. This is Aaron for Mika and Ella saying, live long and prosper.